This is Democracy Watch. So, Mark, this is the biggest news of the week. The Louisiana map in which a second Black Opportunity District had been added was just struck down by two Trump-appointed federal judges as a racial gerrymander. How can a Black Opportunity District that was added to give a voice to Black voters be a racial gerrymander?
Right. So this is a little bit of a complicated backstory. So let me try to simplify it. The map in Louisiana that was passed by the legislature originally struck down under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act for failing to create a second Black Opportunity District. All right. So that's where we left off, right? It violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Then, as you may remember, the Republican legislature of Louisiana came in and enacted a new map that created two Black Opportunity Districts, not the districts that I would have created, but they're the ones the legislature created. So what happened next is a group of white Louisianans. They call themselves non-Black or non-African-American Louisianans, but I'm pretty sure most of them, if not all of them, are white. They brought a lawsuit saying that this new map discriminated against them, which let's set aside for a moment, in a different federal district in Louisiana. And that three-judge panel struck that map down, saying that the Louisiana legislature had racially gerrymandered against these non-Black voters. All of this now looks like it is heading to the U.S. Supreme Court. Kind of the breaking news of the day is that the civil rights groups that had been involved in the original victory have now filed an appeal in the Supreme Court and have now filed a stay petition there, and the state of Louisiana is also appealing that ruling in the Supreme Court. So that is where we are as we sit here. How this can happen, it's a good question.
I mean, isn't a Black Opportunity District intended to give a voice to Black voters, and so inherently can't be a racial gerrymander because it's actually solving that very problem?
Right. So, look, there are some instances where we do see states enact maps that pack black voters that get struck down as racial gerrymanders. But here, the Louisiana legislature was enacting this to comply with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, right? So This was not a situation in which Louisiana was enacting this second district to harm Black voters. They were doing it explicitly because a federal court had said that the prior map had harmed Black voters, so there needed to be a second district, which is why I assume, Brian, uncommented in your question is the fact that it is white voters who are saying that they are the ones who have been injured here.
I guess I just don't understand how the three-judge panel wouldn't have just struck this down, because what they are complaining about is a court-ordered remedy. And so these litigants are basically saying that they're taking issue with a court order.
So in fairness to them, and I don't often say that about these sets of plaintiffs here, and I don't think that this court decision is correct. Obviously, I think the lawsuit, frankly, should have been dismissed as frivolous, but here we are. But in fairness to them, they would say they are not disputing the court-ordered remedy. They are disputing the map that the Louisiana legislature then adopted to effectuate the remedy.
Do you anticipate that this issue then will be properly rectified before the 2024 election? You'd mentioned that it's waiting at the Supreme Court. That obviously doesn't instill a whole lot of confidence, because the Supreme Court may tend to give Republicans the delay they're seeking in certain instances.
Right. So the Supreme Court's going to have a very, very important decision to make. And it's important not because it's important to the voters of Louisiana. It's important not just because it involves racial gerrymandering, but it is important because it is one of these crossroads where the court's legitimacy, I think, is really sort of front and center. And here's why. The first is, as you may remember, 2 years ago, the state of Alabama enacted a remedy around this time of year. Actually, it was earlier in the year. And the Supreme Court said, oh, wait, it's too close to the election. We can't strike down the offending map because it's too close to the election. So one of the initial threshold questions that the Supreme Court is going to have to wrestle with here is, why isn't this court decision out of this three-judge panel simply too late for 2024? This is something that can be litigated for 2025, but too late for 2024. So that's going to be, kind of question number one, I think we are all looking for. The second is, think about it this way, Brian. The state of of South Carolina enacted a racial gerrymander that a 3-judge panel found to be a racial gerrymander. They enacted that in 2021. And that case is still not resolved before the Supreme Court, and it's now May of 2024. And so it is curious, some would say, that the federal judiciary managed to block a map that was first enacted this year when it was challenged by non-black voters, right, where black voters are having their remedy challenged. And it'll be curious to see how quickly the Supreme Court is able to resolve this question for the white voters or the non-black voters of Louisiana.
Yes, we want to be careful. We want to make sure that they're properly referred to as non-black voters. We don't want to assume who these voters might be.
Right, exactly. But it will be interesting because the court has not moved with enormous dispatch to solve the constitutional harm suffered by the black voters of South Carolina yet. So let's see with what dispatch the U.S. Supreme Court is able to address this.
Yes, for those non-black voters. Mark, will this precedent now be exploited by other states where a Black Opportunity District has been added, or is this a very Louisiana-specific issue?
I think this is a very Louisiana-specific issue. But again, I think that you cannot, if you are a fair-minded person, you cannot look past the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court is faced with the fact that in 2022, it said it was too late for Alabama where that would have benefited black voters. It has moved with not anything approaching the speed one would have expected, and which the state of South Carolina and the black voters in South Carolina asked the court to move. And now in Louisiana, things seem to be on a different track. And so I say that it is not Louisiana specific because you can't take this out of the context of the Supreme Court expediting the Colorado case that involved Donald Trump's getting on the ballot. It seemed to have moved more slowly in the scheduling of the hearing involving his immunity claim, which will have delayed his criminal trial in Washington, D.C. So we've talked before about how the Supreme Court's use of time benefits and disadvantages different groups. And so I think precedentially, I am less really focused on what the courts in Louisiana do and what the Supreme Court does here.
Now, let's finish off with this. Are we settled in terms of the maps for 2024? Other than Louisiana, which we're waiting on right now, are there any other outstanding cases or maps that we're waiting on?
I mean, really, no. I mean, there are cases pending in Utah before that state Supreme Court. I think there may be one in Tennessee. Obviously, Texas, we are waiting on. But it's probably too late for the. But again, like this is the thing, Brian, I just started catching myself saying it's too late. But then again, here's Louisiana. So, right, if those are too late, why isn't Louisiana too late, right? But one would have assumed based on the history, for example, in Alabama, where it was too late in 2022, that it would be too late in all of those other states. But let's see what the Supreme Court says.
Well, of course, you can follow along for those watching right now with all of this in Democracy Docket, which is the free news outlet Mark founded to focus on everything voting and elections. Any updates that Mark has will immediately get sent out from Democracy Docket, so please make sure to sign up. With that said, I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.